We'll work on a sample answer for this IELTS Writing Task 1 academic question from Cambridge IELTS 20. This question has 3 charts, which is a little unusual. Usually we get only 1 or 2 charts. A task 1 question with 1 or more charts is a combination question. Before we start writing, let's quickly plan our answer. This usually takes less than a minute. For every chart, we look for 3 things. First, the biggest and the smallest values. Second, whether we can group some of the information together instead of describing every single number. Third, whether there is a trend, such as an increase, a decrease, or a period where the figures stay almost the same. We only have a trend if the chart shows changes over time. The pie chart is quite simple. The biggest group is adults aged 18 to 64. They are just over half of all library members. The other 3 age groups are all much smaller. The table is also quite simple. Children's fiction and adult fiction are the highest at 38% each. Adult nonfiction is next at 13%. All the other categories are all below 10%. The bar graph shows data over time, so there is a trend. The overall trend is an increase. If we compare 2007 to 2016, there's been an increase. Another thing we notice is throughout, either there is an increase or the number is more or less the same. The one noticeable drop we see is in 2013. One more thing we check in combination questions is whether the charts are connected. If they are, we should try to mention that connection in our report because that's often the comparison the question asks for. For example, in this question from the same book, the total population of New York increases over this period. But from the second table, we can see that Manhattan's share is decreasing. So that's the kind of comparison we should include when different charts are connected. In this question, however, the 3 charts are not connected in that way. They all describe the same library, but they don't help explain each other. So we'll describe each chart separately. From this planning, we get a good idea of what we'll include in the overview. The overview only includes the main features. We don't try to include every important detail. So we can identify 3 main points for the overview. These adults are the largest group of library members. Children's fiction and adult fiction account for the highest percentage of loans, and the total number of loans generally increases over the period. Now that we have planned the answer, let's start writing. We'll begin with the basic format. First, we paraphrase the question, then we write the overview, and finally, we write the body paragraphs where we describe the important details. Remember what the question asks for. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. This means we don't describe every single piece of information. We select the main features, report them, and make comparisons when possible. We'll start with paraphrasing. This simply means rewriting the question in different words. To do that, we can use synonyms, change the sentence structure, or add a little information from the chart headings if appropriate. I've written 3 possible paraphrases. All of them are correct, but they become a little more sophisticated from option 1 to option 3. Let's start with option 1. The question says, the charts below give information about a public library in a town called Little Chalfont. In the question, the main heading above the charts is Little Chalfont Library. So in this first paraphrasing, instead of give information, I've written provide data. Instead of a public library in a town called Little Chalfont, I've simply used the name of the library from the chart heading. And because the question is very short, I've added one more sentence mentioning the three charts, a pie chart, a table, and a bar graph. That's all we have done. It's a simple paraphrase, but it's no longer copied direct from the question. Now let's look at option 2. Here we have again used the name of the library from the chart heading. Instead of mentioning chart types, we have described what each chart shows. Normally, the question itself tells us what the charts are about. In this question, however, that information is not given. So we have added from the chart headings. Two charts, the pie chart and the table, give information of only 1 year, 2016. So first we mention these and then we mention the bar graph. So we have written the charts show the age of the library members and the category of books and other materials borrowed in 2016, as well as the total number of loans made each year from 2007 to 2016. The table heading says total loans by category. In other words, it tells us what people borrowed from the library. So in this paraphrasing, we have used the word borrowed. Option 3 is the most sophisticated of these three. The first thing you'll notice is that we have included a lot of information in a single sentence. When we write long sentences, we need to make sure they are still easy to understand. A long sentence is only good if it is clear. Here we have used the word with to introduce the three charts. Then we have described each one separately. The pie chart showing the age distribution of its members, the table presenting the distribution of loans across different categories, and the bar graph illustrating the total number of loans made annually. Instead of annually, we can also write each year. Notice that I have used different words for each chart, showing, presenting, and illustrating. Using different words like this helps us avoid repetition. We have also used some useful collocations, age distribution and distribution of loans. There's one more writing technique I'd like to point out. Instead of writing Little Chalfont Library, which is a public library in this town, I have used two commas, so which is not required. You can use the same technique in your body paragraphs as well. For example, instead of writing adults aged 18 to 64, who are the largest group, we can simply write the largest group. So we don't need to write who are. You can use the same technique in essays too. Instead of writing AI, which is one of the fastest growing technologies today, we can simply write AI, one of the fastest growing technologies today. It's a small change, but it often makes your writing shorter and smoother. Now we'll write the overview. Since we have three charts, our overview should mention the main feature from each chart. If there is a connection between the charts, we should mention that as well. In this question, we have already seen that there is no connection. We avoid including numbers in the overview. The numbers come later in the body paragraphs. Here we have written all the 3 points. First, we mention the largest group in the pie chart. Adults aged 18 to 64 constituted the largest group of library members. Instead of constituted, we can use a simpler word, formed. Then we mention the table using the word while and using the phrases accounted for and highest proportion. And for the bar graph, in the overview, we have just mentioned the overall trend. Notice the word generally. Because there is a small drop in 1 year, if we had just written the word increased, it would have been incorrect. The second example of the overview is quite different from the first one. Instead of using two sentences, we have included all three main features in a single sentence. Whenever you write a long sentence like this, make sure it is still clear and easy to read. If it starts becoming confusing, it's better to split it into two sentences. We've also changed the sentence structure here. Instead of saying adults aged 18 to 64 formed the largest group, we have written that the majority of library members belonged to this group. And instead of over the period, we have written throughout the decade because the bar graph gives data of 10 years. We can write the paraphrasing and the overview as two separate paragraphs or combine them into one. Both are correct. I usually prefer to combine them, so our first paragraph is ready. Now let's write the body paragraphs. There isn't a fixed number of body paragraphs in writing task 1. It depends on the question and on how you want to organize the information. In this question, we'll write 2 body paragraphs. There are 3 charts, but the pie chart and the table are quite simple. There are only 1 or 2 main points we need to mention in each of them, so we'll describe them together. We'll then write about the bar graph in the second body paragraph. This is the planning we did earlier. We'll use this planning to write the body paragraphs, adding the details, the figures, and the comparisons where needed. We'll start with the pie chart. According to the pie chart, adults 18 to 64 made up the largest group of library members, accounting for 51% of the total membership. Notice a few things here. Instead of writing adults aged 18 to 64, I've just put the age range in brackets. It's shorter and the meaning is still clear. Next, notice the phrase accounting for. Instead of starting another sentence with they accounted for, we have joined the information using an ing form. This makes the sentence flow smoothly. You can use the same idea in essays as well. Instead of writing many people work from home, this reduces traveling time, we can write many people work from home, reducing traveling time. It's a simple way to connect related ideas and make your writing flow more smoothly. Then we mention the other 3 categories in one sentence. I've used the word respectively here. It means the first percentage goes with the first category, the second percentage goes with the second category, and the third percentage goes with the third category. It's a useful way to avoid repetition. This is another way we can write about the other 3 categories. You don't always have to include every single figure. Since we have 2 more charts to describe, it's also fine to mention the main feature and then summarize the remaining data. So instead of giving the 3 individual percentages, we can simply say that the remaining 3 age groups accounted for less than half of the total membership combined. Personally, I prefer the first version Because this chart has only 4 categories, so including all the figures doesn't make the paragraph too long. But both approaches are acceptable. Let's move on to the table. I've started with turning to the table. For the pie chart, we started with according to the pie chart. The first thing we want to mention is the 2 highest categories. Children's fiction and adult fiction were the 2 most borrowed categories at 38% each. Notice the preposition at. It's a very common and useful word when we are writing figures in writing task 1. Also notice the word each. That's important because both categories were 38%. If we simply wrote at 38%, it could sound as if they had a combined percentage of 38%. The word each removes any confusion. Next, we have mentioned adult non-fiction separately, and then instead of writing a sentence for every remaining category, we have grouped them together using the word while. Since all of them are below 10%, it's perfectly reasonable to summarize them in one sentence. One more thing I'd like to point out is the word borrowed. The question uses the word loans, but borrowed is a very natural way to describe the idea. But if you can't think of the word borrowed during the exam, you can still write a good answer using the word loans. For example, children's fiction and adult fiction had the highest number of loans at 38% each. At this point, we have completed the introduction and the first body paragraph. This is what our answer looks like so far. Notice how we have followed the plan we made at the beginning. We have first introduced the charts, then written the overview. Now we have added the details from the pie chart and the table. All that's left now is the bar graph, which we'll write in the final body paragraph. The bar graph has data for 10 different years, so there's a lot more we could write. But remember, the question has 3 charts. We have to divide our attention between all of them. If this bar graph were the only chart in the question, then yes, we'd probably describe a few more details. But here we only need the main features. The first main feature is that the total number of loans generally increased over the period. We also need to mention one small exception between 2012 and 2013. In the overview, we had written this as generally increased. Here we are using the phrase, it showed an overall upward trend, and then added, despite a slight decline in 2013. We can write this as, even though there was a slight decline in 2013. So this makes the description accurate. After that, we have supported the trend with the starting and ending figures. In the beginning, it's around 16,000. At the end, it is around 22,000. So we write, the figure rose from around 16,000 in 2007 to approximately 22,000 in 2016. Notice the phrase, the figure. I use this a lot in writing task 1, and I suggest you do the same. Once you have mentioned what you're talking about, in this case the total number of loans, you don't need to repeat it again and again. You can simply write the figure, this figure, or the number. It's a small change, but it makes your writing sound much smoother. One final point. We started with as illustrated in the bar graph. You don't have to write that. You can simply write, finally, the total number of loans showed an increase over the period. So this is our complete answer. Before you go, here are some useful words and phrases from this writing. You don't need to memorize the entire answer, but these expressions are worth learning because you'll be able to reuse them in many other writing task 1 questions. Try making a few sentences of your own using some of these words and phrases. That's one of the fastest ways to remember them. If you found this video useful, do check out the other writing task 1 videos on the channel. Hope this helped you. Bye for now. All the very best.